It's our stories. Welcome to a world where real stories sounds like a movie script.
Fired without severance? I took my severance myself, in the form of his business. This isn't clickbait. This is a survival guide for corporate hell. My boss was a narcissist and a tyrant. When he tried to destroy my career, I pushed the red button. A story of betrayal, blackmail, almost an absolute victory. They say hindsight is 20/20ths. But when you're living in the eye of the storm, blinded by ambition and the reflected glory of a man you idolized, you don't see the cracks until the whole damn building collapses. My name is Mark, and for 10 years, I was Julian's shadow. His architect of shadows, his unseen hand, his right hand, and he cut it off without a second thought. I remember the day I met Julian. It wasn't an interview, it was an audition. He was already a legend, a disruptor, a shark in a sea of corporate minnows. I was a hungry kid, fresh out of business school, convinced I knew everything. He saw something in me, not raw talent, not brilliance, but an insatiable hunger, a willingness to do what others wouldn't. He had that magnetic pull, the kind that makes you want to follow him off a cliff, believing he'd somehow teach you to fly on the way down. My first year was a blur of 18-hour days, black coffee, and adrenaline. I learned faster than anyone. I absorbed Julian's eccentricities, his ruthless logic, his uncanny ability to smell money and weakness from a mile away. I started as an assistant, fetching coffees, managing his calendar. Within 6 months, I was sitting in on high-stakes meetings. In a year, I was drafting strategies, negotiating deals, handling the sensitive accounts, the ones that needed finesse. I wasn't just good, I was indispensable. Julian had the vision, the charisma, the face of the operation. But I was the engine, the gears, the intricate wiring that made his grand designs actually work. If he had an idea, no matter how outlandish or legally ambiguous, I found a way to execute it. And I reveled in it. The power was intoxicating. Walking into a room where people respected Julian, but looked at me with a different kind of awe, the quiet understanding that I was the one who pulled the strings behind the curtain. Our empire wasn't built on conventional business. It was built on connections, on leverage, on knowing where every skeleton was buried in the city's financial district. We specialized in solutions. Need to make a company disappear overnight? We could do it. Need to acquire an asset against all odds? We found the pressure points. Need to clean up a political scandal before it broke? I knew the right people to call, the right whispers to spread. Julian was the conductor, but I was the orchestra. I remember one particular deal, a hostile takeover of a rival tech firm. Julian had been trying for months, hitting brick walls. He came to me, frustrated. "Mark," he'd said, his voice a low growl, "find their weakness. The real weakness." I disappeared into the data, digging through public records, private leaks, even rumors. And I found it. The CEO's offshore accounts, a messy divorce settlement that had been covered up, a secret illness. Within a week, the firm was ours. Julian clapped me on the back, a rare show of physical affection. "You're a genius, Mark. My genius." That was all I needed. His approval was my oxygen, his praise my ultimate reward. I lived for those moments. I truly believed we were partners. A formidable duo, unstoppable. The money was good, obscenely good. I had the penthouse apartment, the luxury car, the bespoke suits. But it wasn't about the things. It was about the status, the feeling of being untouchable. I was Julian's confidant, his confessor, his closest advisor. I knew his fears, his ambitions, his darkest secrets. I cleaned up his messes, both professional and personal. I was more than an employee. I was family, or so I thought. He often told me, "Mark, you are the only one I trust. Everyone else is interchangeable. But you're irreplaceable." I drank it up, every word. It reinforced my belief that I was special, essential. I built the complex financial structures, managed the intricate client relationships, handled the black ops of our business. While Julian glad-handed politicians and charmed investors, I was in the trenches, making sure the machine kept humming. I kept the real clients happy, the ones who paid the most, demanded the most discretion, and knew the least about Julian but everything about me. They saw my competence, my dedication. Julian just took the credit. Looking back, the signs were there, faint at first, like hairline fractures in a glass tower. His increasing paranoia, his sudden, inexplicable mood swings, the way he would subtly shift blame onto others when things went south. But I was too deeply entrenched, too loyal, too convinced of my own invulnerability. I had forged the chains myself, and I wore them like a badge of honor. I believed in him, in us, and that was my gravest error. I forgot that even the most loyal guard dog can be deemed expendable. The scent of betrayal has a metallic tang, like blood. Or maybe that was just the taste in my mouth the day Julian decided to gut me. It was a Tuesday, a meaningless Tuesday, one of countless Tuesdays spent meticulously planning our next corporate conquest. I walked into the executive boardroom, tailored suit crisp, mind sharp, ready to present the quarter's projected acquisitions. The room was cold, unnaturally silent. Julian sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, his face a mask I couldn't decipher. Across from him sat Silas, that kid, Julian's new protege, a slick, eager 20-something with hungry eyes and no discernible talent beyond ass-kissing. Silas wouldn't meet my gaze, a telltale sign of guilt that pricked at my subconscious even before the words were spoken. Then I saw them, two hulking figures by the door, not our usual security. Their suits were too stiff, their expressions too blank. Enforcers. "Mark, have a seat." Julian's voice was flat, devoid of its usual booming warmth. It was a stranger's voice, a knot tightened in my gut. "What's wrong? Is it the Emerson deal? I thought we had it locked down." I tried to sound confident, but a cold dread was already creeping up my spine. Julian leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine, devoid of any recognition, any shared history. "This isn't about the Emerson deal, Mark. This is about you." He slid a manila folder across the table. It stopped precisely in front of me. I opened it. Inside were bank statements, wire transfer confirmations, shell company registrations, all with my name, all pointing to millions of dollars funneled into offshore accounts. Accounts I knew, accounts I had set up. For him. "Embezzlement. Mark," Julian stated, his voice now laced with a theatrical disappointment. $3 million. From client accounts. Discovered during an internal audit. My breath caught in my throat. I looked at the documents, then back at Julian. This wasn't real. This was a nightmare. "What the hell are you talking about? You signed off on all of these. These are your operational funds, your discretionary accounts. You told me to." "I signed off on legitimate business expenses," Julian interrupted, his voice rising, gaining the desired righteous indignation. "Not on grand theft. Not on you lining your pockets with our clients' money. Mark. Our trust." The anger flared, hot and sharp, cutting through the shock. He was pinning his own crimes on me. The losses from his disastrous crypto ventures, the money he'd quietly siphoned off for his gambling debts. The very things I had warned him against, the messes I had painstakingly covered up for him. Now they were mine. "You absolute son of a bitch," I whispered, pushing back my chair. "You're framing me." The two security guards moved, flanking me instantly. Their presence was a suffocating weight. "You're fired, Mark," Julian said, his gaze hard, unwavering. "Effective immediately. All company assets, your laptop, your phone, your company car, are being seized. And consider yourself lucky. I'm giving you a choice. Sign this non-disclosure agreement, admit to a clerical error, and walk away quietly, or I call the federal authorities right now. You'll spend the next 20 years in a federal prison." The room spun. My carefully constructed world, my decade of unwavering loyalty, shattered into a million pieces. The man I had served, the man I had protected, was sacrificing me without a flicker of regret. He was throwing me to the wolves to save his own skin, to clean up his own monumental screw-ups. "I built this company with you." My voice was a raw, guttural sound. "I know everything. Every dirty secret, every illegal transfer. You think you can just throw me away?" Julian stood, his towering frame casting a shadow over me. He leaned close, his voice a venomous hiss, just for my ears. You are a glorified assistant, Mark. A very efficient one, I'll give you that, but ultimately replaceable. The clients don't care about you. They care about me, the brand. Now, get out before I have you forcibly removed. He snapped his fingers. The guards gripped my arms, their hold like steel bands. I didn't resist. What was the point? The fight had been rigged from the start. They marched me out, past the glass-walled offices where I had spent countless nights, past the faces of people I had hired, trained, mentored. Nobody met my gaze. They all stared at their screens, suddenly engrossed in spreadsheets that held no interest. The humiliation was a physical pain, a burning shame that seared my skin. They led me to the elevator, down to the lobby, and then, without ceremony, shoved me out onto the street. The heavy glass doors swung shut behind me with a sickening thud, severing my connection to a decade of my life. It was raining. Of course, it was raining. A miserable, cold drizzle that matched the emptiness in my chest. I stumbled, almost falling into the overflowing gutter. My head was ringing. My hands were shaking. They had taken everything. My job, my reputation, my sense of self, even my damn wallet was in my seized desk. I stood there, soaked and broken, staring up at the gleaming skyscraper, at the 40th floor, where Julian was probably already popping open a bottle of expensive champagne, celebrating his victory. He thought he had silenced me. He thought I was just another problem neatly swept under the rug. But he made a crucial error, a monumental oversight that would cost him everything. He took my company laptop. He took my company phone. He forgot that the real assets weren't in the hardware. They were in my head. And he forgot about the small, innocuous external hard drive I kept hidden in my apartment. My dead man's switch. A contingency plan born of years of watching Julian operate, years of witnessing his casual cruelty, contained everything. Every damning email, every shady transaction, every lie. More importantly, it contained the names and personal contact details of every single one of his key clients. The whales. The very people he claimed cared only about the brand and him. The people who, in reality, trusted me implicitly. The numbness began to recede, replaced by a cold, searing clarity. The shame was replaced by a rage so potent, so pure, it felt like rocket fuel igniting in my veins. He wanted to destroy me? Fine. I would not just walk away. I would not just fight back. I would dismantle his empire, brick by painful brick. I would not simply seek revenge. I would orchestrate his complete and utter annihilation. And I wouldn't do it with lawyers. I would do it by taking away the only thing he truly cared about, his money. I pulled myself up, ignored the cold rain, and started walking. Not home, not to lick my wounds. I walked towards the nearest internet cafe, my mind already buzzing with calculations, with strategies. The game had changed, and I was about to show Julian just how deadly a glorified assistant could be when pushed to the brink. The internet cafe was a festering wound in the side of the city's underbelly. It smelled of stale cigarette smoke, dried sweat, and desperation. A stark contrast to the climate-controlled, marble-floored offices I had been thrown out of just hours ago. But beggars can't be choosers, and right now I was worse than a beggar. I was a fugitive in a suit worth more than the entire contents of this room. I paid cash for a private booth in the back. A cramped, dimly lit box with a sticky keyboard and a monitor that hummed with a headache-inducing frequency. I pulled the hood of my jacket up. Paranoia was itching under my skin like a rash. Every time the door chime rang, I flinched, expecting Julian's goons or the police. But I forced myself to focus. Rage is a powerful fuel, but it burns out if you don't channel it. I needed to be cold. I needed to be surgical. I reached into the hidden lining of my jacket and pulled out the drive. My dead man's switch. It was small, unassuming, black plastic. But inside lay the nuclear codes to Julian's kingdom. I plugged it in. The screen flickered, and then the file directory appeared. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic, staccato rhythm. Folder, Grand Canyon Vacation. Password protected. I typed in the sequence, a string of characters only I knew, derived from the date Julian first betrayed a client 5 years ago. Poetic touch. The files opened. It was beautiful. There they were. The whales. The 12 clients who made up 80% of the firm's revenue. These weren't just names. They were dossiers. I had their personal cell phone numbers, their private emails, their fears, their vices, and most importantly, the exact details of how Julian had been skimming off the top of their accounts. I cracked my knuckles, the sound loud in the small booth. Step 1. Assessment. I needed a target. Not just any target, but a dominant. In the animal kingdom, if you want to take over the pack, you don't fight the runts, you kill the alpha. In our portfolio, the alpha was Magnus. We called him the Viking, a Norwegian shipping magnate with a net worth that made God blink. He was terrifying. He didn't tolerate incompetence, and he loathed dishonesty with a biblical intensity. Julian was terrified of him. Julian always made me handle Magnus because he couldn't handle the sheer pressure of the man's gaze. I opened Magnus' file. I cross-referenced his last 3 quarterly statements, the ones Julian had doctored, with the actual bank feeds I had archived. The discrepancy was subtle to the untrained eye, buried in management fees and currency exchange adjustments. But to a man like Magnus, it would look like what it was: theft. Julian had skimmed nearly $400,000 from Magnus in the last 6 months alone to pay for his mistress's apartment in Soho. I opened a secure, encrypted email service. I couldn't use my old identity. I had to be a ghost, a whisper in the dark. Subject: the leaks in your ship are real. I didn't write a long, pleading letter. Men like Magnus don't read essays. They read bottom lines. Mr. Magnus, you have been overcharged $412,000 in hidden fees since January. The attached PDF contains the forensic proof comparing your official statements to the actual transaction logs. The man you trust is robbing you to pay for his lifestyle. This is just the beginning. If you want the rest of your money, meet me. Tonight, 10 p.m. Pier 42. Come alone or don't come at all. I hovered my finger over the enter key. This was the point of no return. Once I sent this, I was declaring war. Not a corporate dispute, but a blood feud. If Julian found out, he wouldn't just sue me. He'd send people to break my legs. Or worse. I looked at the grainy reflection of myself in the monitor. Dark circles under my eyes, hair wet and matted, tie loose. I looked like a junkie, but I felt like an emperor. I pressed send. The message vanished into the ether. Now the waiting began. The silence in the booth was deafening. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at the screen, sweat trickling down my back. Had he seen it? Did it go to spam? Was he calling Julian right now? Then, a single notification popped up. A reply. 3 words. I am coming. I let out a breath that sounded like a sob. The hook was set. The shark was circling. Now I just had to make sure I didn't get eaten alive. Pier 42 was a graveyard of rusted metal and rotting wood, jutting out into the black, oily water of the harbor. The wind whipped off the ocean, cutting through my wet clothes like a knife, freezing the marrow in my bones. But I didn't leave. I stood in the shadow of a shipping container, watching the entrance. At exactly 9:58 p.m., headlights cut through the darkness. A black SUV, massive and armored, rolled slowly onto the pier. It stopped 50 feet from me. The engine idled, a low, menacing growl. The lights killed, plunging us back into darkness. I stepped out from the shadows, hands raised, palms open. I needed to show I wasn't a threat physically, even if I was about to be the most dangerous person Magnus had ever met. The rear door opened. A giant stepped out. Magnus lived up to his nickname. He was 6'4", built like a mountain, with a beard that looked like it was carved from granite. He wore a trench coat that probably cost more than my parents' house. 2 bodyguards got out of the front, their hands hovering near their waistbands. Magnus raised a hand, and the guard stayed back. He walked towards me, his boots heavy on the wooden planks. He stopped 3 feet away. I could smell his cigar smoke and the cold ocean air. "You look like hell, Mark," Magnus said. His voice was deep, a rumble of thunder. He didn't sound surprised. He sounded disappointed. "I've had a bad day," I replied, my voice steady despite the shivering. "And it's about to get a lot worse for Julian." "The document you sent," Magnus said, reaching into his coat and pulling out a folded piece of paper. "It is disturbing. If it is a forgery, My men will throw you into the water before you can blink. It's real, I said, locking eyes with him. And it's only the tip of the iceberg. Julian is leveraging your assets to cover his margin calls on crypto futures. He's using your liquidity as his personal piggy bank. If the market dips again tomorrow, your positions will be liquidated. You won't just lose the fees, Magnus. You'll lose the principal.
Million.
Magnus stared at me. His eyes were like chips of blue ice, unreadable, predatory. He was assessing me, not as a servant, but as an informant. Why tell me this? You were his dog. You barked when he said bark. You bit when he said bite. Because a dog that gets kicked eventually bites the master. I spat out, the venom in my voice surprising even me. He fired me today, framed me for the embezzlement he committed. He thinks he can destroy me and keep your money. I'm here to prove him wrong.
Magnus Huckled.
It was a dry, humorless sound. So this is revenge. I do not care for petty squabbles, Mark. This isn't a squabble. It's a rescue operation. I stepped closer, invading his space. I'm the only one who knows the codes, Magnus. I'm the only one who knows where the money is really hidden. Julian doesn't know. He's the face. I was the brain. If you stay with him, you bleed. If you trust me, I can stop the bleeding tonight. And what do you want? Magnus asked, his eyes narrowing. Money? A job? I want to kill him, I said. The words hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Not physically. I want to kill his legacy. I want to strip him of everything he has, piece by piece. I want to watch him crumble. And to do that, I need you to pull your funds. All of them. Tonight. Magnus looked at me for a long, agonizing minute. Then, a slow, cruel smile spread across his face. He recognized the hunger in my eyes. It was the same hunger he had. The hunger for dominance. You are a dangerous little man, Mark, he said softly. I like that. He pulled out his phone. I will call my bankers in Zurich. They will initiate the transfer orders immediately. But if I lose 1 cent because of you... You won't, I interrupted. I've already prepared the transfer protocols. I just need your authorization code.
Magnus nodded.
He gave me the code. I pulled out my burner phone, my fingers flying across the screen. I logged into the admin portal, a backdoor I had installed months ago for maintenance. I initiated the wire. Transfer amount, $52 million. Status, processing, status, complete. $52 million vanished from Julian's managed assets in the blink of an eye. It's done, I said, showing him the screen. Magnus looked at it, then back at me. He extended a massive hand. I shook it. His grip was crushing. You have started a war, Mark, Magnus said, turning back to his SUV. Make sure you win it. He drove away, leaving me alone on the dark pier. But I wasn't cold anymore. I was burning up. The first domino had fallen. A $50 million hole had just been blown in the side of Julian's ship. But I wasn't done. The night was young. I had 11 more names on my list, and I had a lot of coffee to drink. I returned to the internet cafe like a soldier returning to a bunker. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a manic, jittery energy. I bought 3 cans of cheap energy drinks and cracked the first one open. The sugar hit my bloodstream like a punch. 1 down, 11 to go. The thing about whales is that they talk. They all swim in the same ocean, eat at the same clubs, sleep with the same class of people. Panic is a contagion. It spreads faster than a virus. If Magnus pulled out, the others would smell blood in the water. But I couldn't rely on gossip. I needed to force their hand. I opened the file for target number 2, Mrs. Eleanor Vance. Old money, the kind of money that arrived on the Mayflower. She was a widow, 80 years old, sharp as a tack but paranoid. She trusted me because I was the only one who remembered her cat's birthday. Julian called her the fossil. I called her the matriarch. I didn't email her. She didn't check email at night. I called her private home line, the one only family used. It rang 3 times. Hello. Her voice was frail, confused. Who is this? Mrs. Vance. It's Mark, I said, pitching my voice low, urgent but gentle. I'm so sorry to wake you, Eleanor, but there is an emergency. Mark? Dear, what is it? Is it Julian? Yes, Eleanor. Listen to me very carefully. I am no longer with the firm. I left because I discovered something terrible. Julian has been reckless with the pension funds, specifically yours. I heard a sharp intake of breath. Fear. Perfect. I checked the accounts tonight, Eleanor. There are unauthorized withdrawals. He's moving money to cover losses in high-risk sectors. Couldn't let him do it to you. That's why he fired me. Because I tried to stop him. Oh my God, she whispered. Mark, what do I do? My grandchildren's trust. I can save it, Eleanor, but we have to act now. Before the markets open. Before he realizes I've warned you. Do you trust me? Yes, Mark. I trust you. You've always been the good one. Authorize the freeze, Eleanor. Call the emergency line at the custodial bank. Use your passcode. Tell them to freeze all assets managed by Julian's firm immediately due to suspected fraud. Do it now. I will. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Click. 2 down. The matriarch's portfolio was worth 30 million. That was 80 million gone in less than an hour. I worked through the night like a man possessed. I was a conductor of chaos. For the Tech Bro twins, who thought they were geniuses, I sent a spoofed analytical report showing their portfolio underperforming the S&P 500 by 15%, implying Julian was skimming the difference. Their ego wouldn't let that slide. For the nervous real estate mogul, I sent photos of Julian meeting with his direct competitors, photos taken months ago for legitimate reasons, but with a caption implies insider trading. For the politician, I didn't say anything about money. I just hinted that a journalist was asking questions about the source of his blind trust contributions. The fear of a scandal made him pull his funds within 10 minutes. It was psychological warfare. I tailored every lie, every truth, every manipulation to the specific insecurity of the client. I used the intimacy I had built with them over a decade as a weapon. I twisted the knife where I knew the skin was thinnest. By 4 a.m., my eyes were burning, my fingers were cramping, and the floor around my booth was littered with empty cans. I leaned back in the creaky chair and looked at the spreadsheet. Red. Everything was turning red. Out of the 12 whales, 9 had initiated immediate freeze orders or withdrawal requests. 2 were unreachables. 1 was hesitant. Total assets mobilized against Julian, $280 million. Almost $300 million. In 6 hours, I started to laugh. It was a manic, jagged sound that made the gamer in the booth next to me look over with concern. When the sun rose over the city, when Julian walked into his office with his latte and his arrogance, he wouldn't be walking into a company. He would be walking into a crater. The phone lines would be screaming. The fax machines would be vomiting withdrawal notices. The liquidity would be gone. He was a dead man walking, and he didn't even know it yet. But I wasn't just going to leave it there. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see the moment the light went out of his eyes. I stood up, threw the empty cans in the trash, and walked out into the dawn. The rain had stopped. The city was waking up. I hailed a taxi. Where to? The driver asked. The financial district, I said, a smile cutting across my tired face. I have a show to catch. The coffee shop across the street from Julian's skyscraper was one of those overpriced, sterile places where aspiring masters of the universe grabbed their $6 lattes before going to war. I sat at a window seat, a baseball cap pulled low over my eyes, nursing a black coffee. I felt like a ghost haunting his own graveyard. It was 7:45 a.m. The morning rush was in full swing. I watched them stream into the lobby, the analysts, the secretaries, the junior partners. I knew their faces. I knew their routines. They looked tired, bored, completely unaware that they were walking into a burning building. At 8:15 a.m., the royal carriage arrived. Julian's Bentley pulled up to the curb. The driver opened the door, and Julian stepped out. He looked immaculate. Navy suit, silk tie, hair perfectly coiffed. He walked with that strut of his, chin up, chest out, radiating the confidence of a man who thinks he owns the sidewalk. Silas trailed behind him like a lost puppy, carrying a briefcase that looked too heavy for him. I took a sip of my coffee. Enjoy it, Julian, I thought. Take a deep breath of that air. It's the last breath of freedom you're going to get. He disappeared into the revolving doors. I checked my phone. I still had access to the internal messaging system, a shadow account I had created years ago for IT testing and never deleted. It was a read-only access, but it was enough. At 8:30 a.m., the first ripple hit. Internal chat, accounting department. Sarah, head of accounts, has anyone seen the transfer request from the Magnus Group? It's massive. Is this a glitch? Mike, Treasury, I'm seeing a freeze order from the Vance Trust. What is going on? At 8:45 a.m., the ripple became a wave. Sarah, I can't get hold of Julian. Magnus lawyers are on line 1. They are threatening a lawsuit. They say the funds are gone. Silas, tell them to hold. It's a misunderstanding. Sarah, it's not a misunderstanding, Silas. The accounts are empty. The liquidity pool is drained. I watched through the glass walls of the lobby across the street. Even from here, I could see the shift in energy. Security guards were running towards the elevators. A group of men in dark suits, lawyers, definitely lawyers, stormed into the building, bypassing the reception desk. Then, at 9 a.m., the bomb detonated. My phone buzzed with a notification from the internal server. System alert. Critical liquidity failure. Trading halted. I looked up at the 40th floor. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. I could imagine the color draining from his face. I could imagine the Scotch glass shattering against the wall. The whales hadn't just left. They had stampeded. And in their panic, they had trampled Julian's reputation into the dirt. I ordered a croissant. Tasted like victory. The chaos inside the office must have been biblical. Through the window, I saw people gathering near the glass walls of the conference room on the lower floors. Arms were waving. People were shouting. I tuned back into the internal chat. It was no longer a professional communication channel. It was a digital riot. Mike, Treasury, we are negative $15 million in the operating account. Payroll is going to bounce tomorrow. Jessica, HR, what do you mean payroll is going to bounce? I have people crying at their desks. Silas, everyone calm down. Julian is handling it. We have a liquidity issue. It's temporary. Sarah, temporary? Magnus just pulled $50 million. The Vance Trust pulled $30 million. The tech twins are demanding an audit. Julian isn't handling anything. He's locked in his office. I smiled. The locked in his office move. Classic Julian. When the pressure got too high, he didn't lead. He hid. He was probably frantically calling his connections, begging for a bridge loan, trying to plug the holes in the Titanic with chewing gum. But nobody would help him. Not this time. Because along with the withdrawal notices, I had leaked the creative accounting documents to a few key industry blogs. The rumors were already swirling on Twitter. Major hedge fund in liquidity crisis? Rumors of embezzlement at Julian and Company. Once that hits the news, you're dead. In finance, perception is reality. If people think you're broke, you become broke. I saw a black sedan screech to a halt outside the building. 2 men in windbreakers stepped out. On the back of their jackets, in bold yellow letters, FBI. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't called the FBI. I wasn't that reckless. Then it hit me. The whales.
Magnus.
He didn't just pull his money. He called the authorities. He wasn't just leaving. He was pressing charges. I watched the agents enter the building. They weren't smiling. This was escalating faster than even I had planned. I wanted to ruin him, yes, but prison. That was a bonus I hadn't calculated. I sat there mesmerized. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. The frantic employees streaming out of the building, boxes in hand. The flashing lights of police cars arriving to manage the crowd. The sheer, unadulterated destruction of a decade of work. And then my phone rang. The real phone, not the burner. I looked at the screen. The ID flashed. The Emperor. Julian. He was calling me. The man who fired me yesterday. The man who threatened to send me to jail. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted him to imagine me looking at the phone, debating whether he was worth the battery life. On the 5th ring, I swiped right. Hello. I answered, my voice calm, casual, as if I was just waking up from a nap. Mark. Julian's voice was unrecognizable. It was high-pitched, ragged, hysterical. "Mark, thank God you picked up. Where are you?" "I'm enjoying my unemployment, Julian," I said, taking a bite of my croissant. "Why? Do you need me to return the company car keys? I can mail them." "Stop it. Stop the games," he screamed. I could hear the panic in the background. Shouting, phones ringing, sirens. "I know it was you. I know you did this. Magnus, the accounts, the leaks. It's all you. I don't know what you're talking about," I lied smoothly. "You fired me for incompetence, remember? You said I was just a glorified assistant. Surely a glorified assistant couldn't dismantle your entire empire in 12 hours. Mark, listen to me." His voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "The FBI is in the lobby. Magnus is threatening to kill me. I can't find the backup ledgers. I can't find the encryption keys for the offshore holding companies. Silas doesn't know anything. He's useless. Sounds like a management problem," I said coldly. "Mark, please," he was begging now. The great Julian, the shark, was reduced to a whimpering child. "I'll give you anything. You want your job back? Double salary? Equity? I'll give you 10% of the firm. Just come back. Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you have the files. Fix this." I laughed. It was a cold, dark laugh that came from the bottom of my stomach. "You still don't get it, do you?" I said. "There is no firm, Julian. It's gone. It's dust. You tried to frame me. You tried to ruin my life to cover your gambling debts. Did you really think I'd just roll over?" "I was desperate," he sobbed. "I didn't mean it. We were partners, Mark. Brothers. We were never brothers," I snapped. "I was your tool, and you broke me. Now you're dealing with the sharp edges." "Mark, they are coming up the elevator. The agents are coming up. You have to help me. I'll go to prison." I looked across the street. I saw the movement in the 40th floor window, shadows moving fast. "You know what the funny thing is, Julian?" I said, leaning closer to the glass. "I'm watching you right now. I'm across the street." Silence. Then, I saw a tiny figure appear at the window of his office, pressing his hands against the glass, looking down frantically. "I see you," I whispered, "and you look small. So very small. Mark. Mark. Goodbye, Julian." I hung up. I watched as the agents kicked open the door to his office. Couldn't hear it, but I saw it. Julian turned away from the window, hands raised. He was shoved against the desk. Handcuffed. They dragged him out. I finished my coffee. It was cold, but it was the best cup of coffee I had ever had. I stood up, dropped a $20 bill on the table for the waitress, and walked out onto the street. The sun was shining. The air was crisp. The king was dead, and the jester had the keys to the kingdom. But the story wasn't over. Julian was gone, but the vacuum remained. And nature abhors a vacuum. I had $50 million of Magnus money waiting to be managed. I had a list of clients who now needed a new home. A home that was safe. A home that was honest. Or at least honest enough. I pulled out my phone and dialed Magnus. "He's in custody," I said when he answered. "Good," Magnus grunted. "Now about my portfolio. When can we meet to discuss the strategy?" "I'm free now," I said. "Lunch?" "Lunch," Magnus agreed. "But Mark." "Yes. Don't ever lie to me." "I wouldn't dream of it," I said. And for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't lying to protect someone else. I was lying to protect myself. I merged into the crowd, just another face in the city. But I walked differently now. I wasn't a shadow anymore. I was the one casting it. The days following Julian's arrest were a blur of headlines, flashing cameras, and legal chaos. The financial press called it the collapse of the decade. They painted Julian as a monster, a sociopath who preyed on the wealthy to fund his degenerate lifestyle. They weren't wrong, but they missed the most important part of the story. They missed the architect of his fall. They missed me. To the outside world, I was just a former employee who had escaped just in time, a lucky bystander. To the insiders, the clients, the brokers, the sharks, I was something else entirely. I was the man who walked out of a burning building without a singe mark on his suit. carrying the vault codes in his pocket. I didn't go back to the internet cafe. I rented a suite at the Four Seasons. The presidential suite. It cost $5,000 a night. I didn't care. Magnus was paying for it. Or rather, his fees were. My phone didn't stop ringing for 72 hours. It wasn't just the clients I had contacted that night. It was everyone. The other whales from the list who I hadn't even gotten to yet. They had heard the rumors. They knew that Magnus, the Viking, the smartest money in the room, had moved to me. Panic is a powerful motivator, but greed is stronger. They wanted to be where the winner was. I sat in the plush velvet armchair, looking out over the city, a glass of 18-year-old scotch in my hand. My laptop was open on the coffee table. New client onboarding, the Vance Trust. New client onboarding, K&L Tech Ventures. New client onboarding, Sarah Jenkins, real estate. I was accepting them, but not on the old terms. My fee structure has changed, I told the politician when he called, his voice trembling with anxiety. I don't charge 2% anymore. I charge 4%, and I take 20% of the upside. That's robbery, Mark, he spluttered. Julian only charged. Julian is currently sharing a cell with a drug dealer. I interrupted, my voice smooth and cold like liquid nitrogen. And your assets are currently frozen by the DOJ because you were associated with him. I'm the only one who can untangle that mess. I'm the only one with the clean records. You're not paying for management, Senator. You're paying for salvation. Do you want it or not? He paid. They all paid. It was intoxicating. The power I had felt as Julian's right hand was nothing compared to this. That was borrowed power. This was mine. I held their lives in my hands, and I squeezed just enough to let them know who was in charge. But victory has a strange aftertaste. It doesn't taste like happiness. It tastes like metal. On the fourth day, I got a text. Please, just 5 minutes. I have nothing. Silas. I stared at the message. Silas, the boy wonder, the replacement, the kid who had sat across from me in that boardroom and smirked while Julian ended my life. I should have ignored him. I should have blocked the number. But a dark, twisted curiosity took hold of me. I wanted to see him. I wanted to see the wreckage. Lobby bar. 3 p.m., I replied. He was there early. I watched him from the mezzanine for a moment before going down. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. His suit, probably the same one he wore the day I was fired, was rumpled and stained. He had lost weight. He was shaking. When I sat down opposite him, he flinched. Mark, he breathed, his eyes darting around the room as if he expected the FBI to jump out of the potted plants. Thank you. Thank you for meeting me. I signaled the waiter, sparkling water, and a whiskey for the kid. I don't drink, Silas stammered. You look like you need one, I said. Talk. It's a nightmare, Mark, he whispered, leaning in. They interrogated me for 10 hours. They think I was involved. They think I helped Julian cook the books. I told them I didn't know anything. I told them I was just an analyst. Were you? I asked, leaning back. You seemed pretty important in that boardroom last Tuesday. You seemed ready to take my seat. He turned pale. I didn't know he was going to frame you. I swear. He just told me you were stealing. I believed him. He was my mentor. He was a con artist, Silas. And you were a useful idiot. I know, he choked out. Tears were welling up in his eyes. It was pathetic. Mark, nobody will hire me. My name is toxic. I've applied to every firm in the city. As soon as they hear Julian and Co., they hang up. I'm broke. My landlord is evicting me. I have student loans. He looked at me with those puppy dog eyes, begging for a scrap. I know you're starting a new firm, he said, his voice trembling with hope. I know you have Magnus. Mark, please. I know the systems. I know the accounts. I can help you. I'll work for free. Just give me a chance to clear my name. Let me work for you. I looked at him. I saw myself 10 years ago. Young, hungry, desperate to please. Blind to the nature of the beast. I took a sip of my water. I swirled the liquid in the glass. Silas, I said softly, do you remember what happened when the security guards dragged me out? He blinked. What? When they dragged me out, you didn't look away. You watched, and you smiled. It was a small smile, just at the corner of your mouth. But I saw it. Mark, you thought you won. I continued, my voice hardening. You thought you had climbed the ladder by pushing me off. That's the game, right?
Toe ito.
I was wrong.
I'm sorry.
Apology accepted, I said. I reached into my pocket, pulled out $100 bill, and placed it on the table. What is this? He asked. For the whiskey, I said, and for a taxi home. But, the job? Can I work for you? I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I looked down at him, and for the first time I understood Julian. I understood why he treated us like disposables. Because when you are at the top, looking down, everyone else looks like an ant. And you don't negotiate with ants. No, Silas, I said. You can't work for me. You're weak. You let Julian manipulate you. You let him use you as a shield. I don't hire victims. I hire killers. Mark, please. I have nowhere to go, he cried out, causing a few people in the lobby to turn their heads. Then go to hell, I said. I hear they're hiring. I walked away. I didn't look back. I could hear him sobbing behind me, but I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing.
No pity. No remorse.
Just a cold, hard satisfaction. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the penthouse. As the doors closed, shutting out the noise of the world below, I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. I looked tired. There were new lines around my eyes, but the suit fit perfectly. I was the right hand no more. I was the head. I was the king. But as I looked closer at my reflection, a thought chilled me to the bone. I looked exactly like Julian. I had destroyed the monster only to take his place. I had stolen his clients, his methods, his ruthlessness. I had even just crushed a young, desperate kid for the sheer sport of it. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Magnus was waiting for me in the suite, reviewing a contract. You're late, he grunted. I was taking out the trash, I said, walking past him to pour another drink. Good, Magnus said. Now let's talk about the Asian markets. We need to be aggressive. Aggressive? I repeated, staring at the amber liquid in my glass. Yes, we can do aggressive. I raised the glass to the empty room. To the victors, I whispered, and I drank.
Thank you for staying with me until the end. How would you have acted in the protagonist's place? Write your thoughts in the comments. More fresh and controversial stories every day on my profile. Like and subscribe to this channel.